Hey, everybody. I am going to talk about a book that I just finished last night and really, really enjoyed, which is Campaign Builder Castles and Crowns from Kobold Press, part of their Campaign Builder series. Um, Years ago, the late Harlan Ellison once said that he hated the question when someone came over and saw his thousands of books in his library and said, "Have you read all those books?" And he said, "What a dumb question. Who wants a library full of books they've already read?" So I'm kind of guilty of that. I buy a lot of RPG books. I'll get them, I'll flip through them, I'll put them on the shelf, and then I'll go buy more RPG books. And lately, I've been trying to make myself sit down and read the books cover to cover. Now, I'll never catch up. I'll never catch up. I doubt many of us will. There'll always be more than I have that I could possibly read in what's left of my life, which is hopefully many, many decades. But I am trying to pick certain books and read them cover to cover, which takes me a while because life being what it is, I'm talking about maybe 1 to 3 pages a night with a couple weekends where I can make a little bit more. But I read Campaign Builder and I really liked it. I had gotten their Cities and Towns, and I have gotten their Dungeon Campaign Builder too. I haven't looked deeply into the dungeon one. That has more to do with my home game than it has to do with the subject matter. And admittedly, the cities one, I thought when I started reading it had too much filler for me. I may revisit it, although it's for 5e. This, starting with the second book, Castles and Crowns, they're going for Tales of the Valiant. And I like, that's what I'm playing now. And so it just has more relevance again for my home game. But right off the bat, this thing kind of reminded me of the big coffee table books that I had as a child that would have the parts of a castle, and they would have a big illustration of the Bailey or a big illustration of the keep, and tell you what everybody did in the castle. And this feels like that, blown up and written for adults. So let's take a look at it. Credits, let's lead designer Richard Green, Tim Hincock, and Brian Suskin, who I've worked with, and other designers Celeste Konowich and Sebastian Rombach, who I've also worked with. Sebastian. But I guess that's my disclaimer. But I haven't done any work on this book, and I like it quite a bit. So right off the bat, they start talking about life in the castle, and they give you something that's really, really helpful, which is just an explanation of what a duke is, what a marquis is, what an earl is, what a countess is, what a viscount is, what's the difference between a baron or a baronet, a knight, all the way down to knight and dame. And it's great for all these titles that gets thrown around that you may not know what they mean. I mean, especially if you're American, you may not really know how they rank one above the other and how they fit in. And I found that remarkably helpful. I guess I could have like Wikipedia that information, but having it all right here in the same book on castles, just very, very helpful going forward in character creation and plotting out kingdoms. Um, and I'll say too that this book has me wanting to build a kingdom adventure, which is a testament to a good book that you get it and you want to use it right away. They have kingdom characters. They give you heritages, which is part of their heritage and lineage system. And this is less useful to me personally because they're kind of generic Elven Kingdom, Dwarven Kingdom. I think that these are better as samples for how you would make your own that fit into the specifics of your own campaign, your own home world. Than, but you could just take these whole cloth. If you know, I would make my own, but I would use these as templates. Bright Fae, you can actually be a Fae and have a Fae lineage. Something I would not allow in my campaign, at least not at first. I want to keep the Fae mysterious, but great if you're running a Fae campaign. Then we get into the kingdoms, other heritages. We'll pull through fast. Character threads. So this is a really interesting idea, and I play in Shard Tabletop, and I see they've already got threads as an extension you can port in. Threads are kind of life paths for your character. You know, you pick a path, and as you progress, then you go through. You gain certain benefits, and you level. You know, you hit your milestones at your tiers of play at 5th level, 11th level, 17th level, and they have threads for things like an ambassador and what would be an ambassador's life choice and what they're starting out, you know, to where they want to end up, or um, a court artist, or let's see some other ones here, courtiers and gentleman bandits and impoverished noble who maybe wants to get his house's glory and money back, ministers, royal things, etc. Really, really good. Really, really good. I think it's a fun kind of not campaign arc, but character arc to impose in a kingdom set campaign. Courtly subclasses, jesters, bard, jester class for the bards, knights, very, very good. Ranger. Now, I'll say a wizard. These are great. Now, a couple of them, like the bard, is missing its bardic performance, which is something that Tales of the Valiant Bards do. And my understanding, and I may be wrong about this, is that this book was being developed as Tales of the Valiant was being developed. So the subclasses are sort of halfway between 5th edition and Tales of the Valiant. I hope they'll put out some errata that will add in the things that there aren't. I think there's only like two subclasses that don't match perfectly, and I've seen discussion online about ways to fix it. But I hope they'll put out some official errata, and specifically so that errata will migrate into maybe being reprinted in another book, like they have the player's guide coming out. I don't know if it reprints any of this or not. My guess is it doesn't, but maybe they'll get corrected in the future edition or make it into the VTTs with the correction, because I would love to play these subclasses again in a kingdom-based campaign. Um, Moving on, courtly campaigns, factions, things like that, that take you through how you could have, aristocratic factions and adventure hooks for those, criminal factions, and just really help you populate your kingdom. Um, Again, interesting stuff I'll probably come back to if I do make a court campaign. And I like it a lot. And then we get to, let's cut ahead. We get to the section that really reminded me of my childhood, which is where they start talking about the parts of a castle, sites and settings, and they'll take you through, look at this wonderful castle map. This is where it's hitting the nostalgia button really hard. But they take you through what's in a castle, what are the parts of the castle, what do you expect to see there. They really they really make it specific. You could just drop this castle in. Now, here's my first complaint with the book. My first complaint with the book is a wonderful book, but for some reason, there are a lot of places where the art and the descriptions don't match. And things are just a little off. But it's odd to me because you can't exactly take this castle and this description and drop it in. You're going to get confused where a room is not where they say it is, or it's not on the floor they say it is, or it's divided into two rooms where it's not in the picture. And it's just a little weird that that wasn't communicated better here, because it makes the art an interesting example and the text an interesting example, but not the same example. So that was a little frustrating for me, but it's a minor quibble. Um, and you can see they go into a lot of detail about it. Now, uh, let's move on. Sample Dwarven Manor. I think this was another one where the one of the floors of this manor was described as being the highest floor, but is clearly the lowest floor on the map. And I thought, that was just something where something broke down in the communication there. But again, wonderful Dwarven Manor, Summer Fae Palace. Look at that. You could drop that right into the end of a campaign or the beginning of one. And that's wonderful. Military strongholds. Look at that. Beautiful. Going on through. Um, Monastery. Royal magic items. A lot of new magic items in this, all geared around courts. Really cool stuff. Fabled items, which is their, super powerful weapons that level up as you do. Um, Good stuff there. Lots of good stuff. Fabled rituals, which I don't think we've seen fabled rituals elsewhere, but I may be wrong about that. Additional spells and rituals. Rulers and kingdoms. Now, this is really interesting. It's a bunch of sample kingdoms, and I expected it to be the least interesting part of the book for me because, again, I'm not looking to port stuff into my world. I'm looking to create stuff. So, again, this is me. This is how I use a book, and it's not necessarily how you do, because you could totally take this and just drop it in. And they build it. They tell you how to build a kingdom, and they give you all the demographics and things, settlements, religion. They give you some good benchmarks for the size of a settlement versus what it does. And a lot of useful tables, a lot of useful tips. And then we're going to get to some sample kingdoms, like this one here, the island realm of the Alcarades. And they do a whole fully fleshed out kingdom with the rulers and the noble cities and the factions. And this is something you really could just drop straight into a campaign. And, they're coming out with their labyrinth setting, which is the kind of, doorways, passageways, stairways, hallways, corridors, roads between the worlds, and thousands of worlds. It's a framework, an overlay for whatever world you wanna create, published or homebrewed, all dropped in. And if you were doing a world hopping campaign and you don't wanna have to invent a dozen different worlds, you could take bits of this and just drop it in as one of the worlds in the labyrinth, or any planar hopping campaign, or port it into your own campaign as a section of the world you haven't visited yet. And so that's cool. Again, for me, I would use it as a sample, not an actual thing, until we get to let's get out of we got the human, the dwarven, Stoneheart Canyon, and then they start to make references back and forth between like the Dwarven Kingdom and the Elven Kingdom. And you realize that even though these are samples, great art by Brian Syme, even though these are samples, they're building a small world here out of these, and you could drop them all in and have a world. Elven Kingdoms, adventure plots for the Elven Kingdoms, see. But now we get to fairy kingdoms. Now these are interesting. Again, I don't have fairy kingdoms living on the surface of my planet, so I'd be like, why would I use these? And I started reading them. And they make a lot of references to the Summerland and to things from the various Midgard books. And Midgard is, of course, Kobold Press's own campaign setting, and it's probably my favorite campaign setting of all time. Caveat, caveat, except my own. And I love Midgard. I have written some things from Midgard. I buy everything Midgard, and Midgard is a flat world, and the elves are very Fae-like, and they either live in the Summerlands or the Shadow Realm. And as I started reading about these sample fairy kingdoms, I realized they're totally mapping out portions of the Summerlands. And so if you do play Midgard and you wanted to visit the lands of the elves, a thing that they haven't really done in detail. I mean, you go there, you do go into the Summerlands briefly in um, Wrath of the River King, and they have done a lot of work on the Shadowlands in the Book of Ebontides and its associated adventure book, as well as numerous adventures. But the Summerlands have been largely undetailed. And this thing here that I thought was going to be just a throwaway part of the book that I wouldn't really be interested in, maybe one of my favorite things in it, which is all of these fairy kingdoms that you could put right down in a Midgard Summerlands campaign right now. With rulers and factions and cities and conflicts. There's the Holly King, look at him. And it's great. It's really, really great. Great material in this. Um, Look at that. That's an Infernal Kingdom. This one's interesting to me because it's a kingdom in one of the lesser planes of hell, but it still has, like, people that live there that aren't demons and has an ecology and, like, an economy. So it didn't feel very hell-like to me. It felt hellish, but not hell-like, and I thought, "Is this supposed to be an infernal kingdom on a planet?" But it's an infernal kingdom in a lesser plane of one of the hells. Which is fascinating. It's a bit like, if you play Assassin's Creed Valhalla and you go to Jotunheim, the land of the frost giants. I expected that to look like it did in Thor Ragnarok or something, just be or the first Thor movie, just be an ice hell. But it wasn't. There were people there brewing mead and, selling it in markets and things because it's a place, and this is like, yeah, hell is a place too. Um, so I found that a fascinating angle that's pushing at my brain in interesting ways. But, Space Kingdom. The Space Kingdom. Now that's way off far afield from anything I would use, except that when you get to their solar system, they place all the kingdoms on the planets they've been telling you about I mean, all the kingdoms they've been telling you about on one of the planets. So now you see they have not only given you samples, they've given you a campaign cosmology with planets, kingdoms on those planets, Fey realm kingdoms associated with those planets, outer space kingdoms. this really is it's not even mini. It's a mid-sized campaign setting disguised in or inserted into the middle of a campaign builder book. And then we get to monsters. Um, love the monsters. Now we get to uh, NPCs, Fey Vizier, Gargoyles. That's actually they're still in monsters. Royal White. This one's interesting to me, the Void Tumor. I don't know what it's doing in this book. This is a thing that attaches to you and possesses you, and it's a really cool mechanic. I don't know what it has to do with kingdoms. It seems like it's something that should be in the Labyrinth book and got somehow left out and stuck in this one. I guess the idea is that you can have a kingdom where the ruler is possessed or it's taking over the court. But there's nothing in here that's kingdom specific, but I love it, the Void Tumor. I hope my players aren't watching this because I'm totally going to use it. And and again, like this little thing here, this Zilf is some kind of fiend. Feels like it should be in a different book. Feels like these things are part of the Labyrinth book. I don't mind them. More monsters, good. I'm just not sure what they're doing in this book, but that's not a criticism. Now we get to the NPCs, and this is my only other hard criticism of the book, which is that these are all high magic NPCs. So arcane painter, diplomat. The diplomat has magical powers, spell casting, master assassin, the reanimator, siege engineer. The siege engineer is not going to take. I mean, he can, she can take down your castle with her catapult, sure, but she has this thing called call siege fire, which is a bonus action that rains down fire from the sky, and you have to make a dex save or take 2d8 bludgeoning damage. I don't need that. I want, my siege engineer to be a siege engineer who works with the catapults and the ballista and maintains the devices. I don't need them to rain down magical fire. Maybe you do. That's too high magic for me. That's too a specific character, sure, but every siege engineer. So I'm unfortunately, if I were going to build a kingdom, I would strip out a lot of these fantastical abilities from the base. You know, the these wonderful working class NPCs that you need to staff your kingdom, and I wouldn't use them as written, but you might, and sample rulers. Now, some of these sample rulers are like the Holly King, the rulers that were mentioned in those sample kingdoms, but they're also great templates for taking, an elf ruler, a dwarf ruler, and just popping your ruler in, filing off the serial numbers. Again, really great stuff. Then we get to naming tables at the end, lots of random tables, descriptors, regalia, etc. Other regalia, you can make what are they carrying, what are they doing, and then social interaction and adventure hooks. A whole bunch of tables about just things that could happen in a kingdom, from very mundane or trivial things to very important things, and we end with those. And and then we end with commercials. Let's go back. So I like the book a lot. I think it's very useful. As I said, the testament to its value is that I really want to do a kingdom campaign now. And it's I think very well done. I think it's a lot of bang for your buck. Criticisms are throughout. The art doesn't match. There's a place that describes one of the kingdoms as having, I think it's a blue and green ball on a triangle, and instead it's an orange and blue balls on an inverted triangle with another triangle behind it. So there was some real, maybe it was just the timing, but it happened in about 6 or 7 places where the art was just, maybe more than that, where the art was very out of line with the description, which as I really want it to be of a piece. I want to see that attention to detail. So that was a criticism, but that won't bother you at all if you're using this as an instruction manual and not just taking things. And if you do want to take things, there's a wealth of material here. And as I said, I wish that some of those NPCs weren't super powered. I wish they were the kind of people you would actually find in a medieval kingdom or in those professions. I don't need every siege engineer in every kingdom to be able to call magic fire down. If they can call magic fire down, why are they interested in siege engines to begin with? They already have magic fire. But those are my two tiny quibbles in what is an excellent, excellent book. And I really encourage you to check it out. It's made me want to go back and revisit the castles and the cities book and probably the dungeon book. and I hope that they'll continue this series. I'd really love them to do a wilderness environment book next as a follow-up, because that seems to be the other big type of exploration that and campaign that they could tackle. So I hope they will do that. I will keep buying the series. I encourage you to check it out. I'll put links in the show notes. And thank you for listening to me. And now I'm reading their Game Master's Guide. So, in about 6 months when I finish that, I'll come back and talk about it. But thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.